listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is April 19th, 2025, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing on this Saturday afternoon? Oh, my goodness.
Spencer, hello. Yes, I don't know if we've ever recorded a main episode of the show on a Saturday afternoon before, but here we are.
Yeah.
And this is like in that window where my brain is at like high capacity. So, you know, anything could happen on the show today, I think. But yeah, like I'm doing well. We don't have any like massive breaking news to talk about, but we got a lot of stuff to cover this week. And we are, as we speak right now, we are just a couple days out from patch. 11.1.5 is imminent this week on Live Realm. So, you know, we've talked a lot on the show about sort of the build process of this patch, and as we've gotten new information. So, you know, we've covered a lot of the stuff on the show extensively in recent episodes, but we'll go over like what you need to know about what's coming in this week, which is cool. It's exciting. I think it seems like this patch is not going to really disrupt my typical weekly WoW routine right now. It might add a couple little, you know, side dishes or something to the menu, but it's not going to be something where I'm spending significant time away from the activities that I'm enjoying in season 2 and that are kind of priorities. So to me, I think that's a good place for it to come in.
Yeah, it's interesting. The activities that are priorities for me currently, obviously Mythic Plus being the large thing outside of Raid, and we won't be raiding until tomorrow night, so I have a little bit of time before that happens, since it's Saturday currently. But it means that outside of that, Mythic Plus has kind of been the big thing. And so I've been focusing on trying to get all my 12s and 13s in time to try and get that extra bit of resilience going, the key resilience going, and obviously work my way towards 3K, which I'm now at like 2850 or 2840 something on 2 characters, because it's sort of spread out between whichever one the group needs, whether it's my Druid for just high key in general power plus a battle res plus versatility buff, which is also really nice, or my Evoker, which brings, you know, Lust obviously, plus also is performing very well in keys. So they're both viable, and they're both getting these little bits and pieces of, if I can combine them together, I could have resilience kind of situation slowly happening. So that's kind of neat. So I've had a lot of focus on keys the past week and a lot of fun with it. And I think what's been interesting is we've gotten to the point now where people are geared enough in our you know, guild that we sort of run keys with. I still pug a lot of keys, but the guildies that I run keys with are all experienced enough and geared enough that you can kind of do what you want to do. So last night, one of my fellow boomkins started playing around with some pretty silly builds and found one that was actually really fun. And so like just it's neat to sort of explore with outside of the meta stuff when you're dealing with, not with 12s and 13s. Obviously the meta is kind of the way you lean that way, but when it comes to 10s, you can start doing some silly stuff. And so he found something that actually was quite viable in 10s for Boomkin that I'm excited to try out and do a few keys on as well. So I like having, there's something special about having other people who play your class that you're friends with, that you can like commiserate as well as create with, and be creative and have those conversations. So I had a really good chat with him about that, and we had some fun doing keys. Outside of that, I also was, I guess, dealing with hey, I want to do something fun that doesn't require a lot of effort, that has a reward that I want, a tangible reward that I want. So I was like, what are all of the Boomkin form, not Boomkin, what are all the Druid form things that I missed in Dragonflight while I was not really focused on Dragonflight? Because through that expansion, as much as I was playing here and there, I wasn't really like engaged. So there was certainly, you know, rare spawns, things like that I wasn't killing regularly to try and farm these forms. So I've gone back to do that. And I've gotten 5 forms that I didn't have out of that so far, including one off a rare spawn, which felt really good.
Nice. That's cool.
So,
yeah, that's a cool thing to go do.
Crossed them off the list for my Druid. And so that's been really nice. I also have started doing, at least this week I did, and I'll probably continue going forward, doing Frack kills to try and get the Frack mount, as well as get the Boomkin form off of the second last boss out of Mirror Soul Raid, so that we can try and get that happening too. So that's come on my list as like silly kind of something to spend my time doing when I want to play WoW, but I'm not sure what to do kind of, time filler. So that's been nice. But it reminded me of something, which was the fact that you can't queue for old expansion LFRs, right? They sort of disable those systems once we move from expansion to expansion. And I was thinking it would be really neat if when you went to the capital city for each expansion, if it would allow you somewhere there to queue for those LFRs. And if this exists, that it's something that I have completely blanked on. But
yeah, it does. It does exist for. I can't guarantee that it affects for all of them, but there are definitely some that you can do. I know for sure. I guess it would depend on which one you were trying to do specifically. But they put I did it for some of the Pandaria stuff because there was an LFR recolor in Throne of Thunder I absolutely had to finish. It was so good.
Yeah.
And so I would go talk to Lore Walker Cho, and it was I could queue for solo Throne of Thunder LFR at very high level.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there is the opportunity for that, because it would be neat to have ways of doing that, because it's the same case of hey, this would be a really fun kind of time spender thing to do, would be to queue up for the old LFRs, as you said, to try and get all these old transmogs, but you also have chances to get the drops on some of these, pets and toys and that kind of stuff off an LFR lockout as well. So people who want to farm them, it'd be neat to have that extra opportunity to do so. So if there's something like that for each expansion, that's great. I just haven't found the one for Dragonflight yet.
Yeah, I don't know if the Dragonflight one might not be in yet, because I think they usually are an expansion behind or something. And they're also buried, right? It's not in a menu in the UI somewhere, and it's not maybe somewhere you'd expect, but
right.
There, for example, there's a Tortolin in Borealis that you could talk to do Battle for Azeroth LFRs.
Yeah,
you gotta seek them out. You can look them up, but they're not. It's weird because the game doesn't really point you to them, but they are there. I don't know if Dragonflight ones are in yet though.
Yeah, I feel like that's something they could integrate into the group finder UI pretty easily, to have people be able to just queue into those, and as a solo scenario like you talked about would be ideal if you're just going to be crushing everything anyways. I think that might be a neat option, or maybe you could queue as a group, and then once you found your group, you then all of you queue within that group into the LFR together. It would be kind of neat too. So yeah, that'd be good. I'd be happy about that. The other one here was the raid skip. I thought was really weird, because the raid skip now feels like you're only really skipping trash, which I thought was pretty strange. Because if you use the skip to just go to One-Armed Bandit, you're basically just skipping all of the trash between Vexy and One-Armed Bandit. There's no boss in between there, and that feels like a very strange raid skip. Now, obviously, you can use it without killing Sprocket and without killing the Carnage and all that sort of stuff, but it felt like a weird thing. We were doing a heroic clear on Wednesday this week, and I realized really quickly, I was like, oh, well, we killed all the outside bosses, because that was worthwhile. We still, even in heroic, death run to Sprocket, because that's still faster, even though we have very geared characters now, plus the, buff and everything else. It's still faster to do that. So I still wish that they would examine whenever that becomes the best way to do something to address trash issues in those situations would be really nice, because that should never become the best way to do something. So I think that should get looked at. And it shouldn't be like, oh, well, we've now added doors that don't open until a trash mob dies. That is not the way to solve this problem. So I hope they have a look at that at some point down the line, or at least consider it for future ones. But it seemed really weird to me to be like, okay, their solution to the skip is basically you just skip all of the trash at the front end of the Galagio and are now in front of One-Armed Bandit, and you're like, okay, that's a very strange raid skip. I'm so used to skipping substantial amounts of bosses and raid content.
Well, they did add the skip was really weird when it first started a couple weeks ago. You can skip to Muggsy.
You can,
but a lot of teams don't want to do that
Muggsy.
Because there's a little bit. A lot of teams don't want to do that because they don't want our bandit loot. Yeah, it's definitely we did the skip this week to go because we were trying to just get Galley done quick and then get into Mythic, and it was definitely more streamlined. But it is. I agree that it's awkward, but I guess having the option to go to One-Armed Bandit is, I understand why, I guess, because it does have loot people want, but I agree it's super weird. And if you don't if you just like go do that, you're like, oh, that's it. Like it's a little strange, but yeah, right now we're using the option to go straight to Muggsy. I think that's going to be our lane for a while. Is like, all right, do 178 Mythic until we're done with Mythic for the week, and then clean up.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So for me, I very much am of the opinion that when raid skips come in, typically the raid's laid out in a way like you always picture like a raid that's like I always picture like Nighthold, like a raid that's a tower, and you're working your way up a tower to sort of get your way to the next bosses. And it's like, great, with the raid skip, you're going to skip floors 3 through 7 and go right to floor 8. And you're like, oh, great. Okay, so we skipped all these bosses and all this stuff. And then this go around, it very much feels like, oh, the raid skip lets you skip this hallway of casino, and now you're in front of the boss. And you're like, oh, okay, that feels really weird. It doesn't feel like there's anything else impeding
I agree.
your ability to do. I don't know. It's just the way the raids laid out is, in this case, is very flat and then very open, and really a lot of choice to which bosses you go to next until you get to going to One Armed Bandit. So it just created a weird thing with the skip, and I noticed it this week, and it just felt weird that was the case. So the other thing that came up to me on Wednesday was a lot of people started talking about the dinar. And I know there's a post that we're going to talk about on the show that came out after I had this conversation, which is what I'm going to talk about here, and we'll talk about the post later. When we did that heroic clear, a Muggsy's mug jug dropped, which everyone currently still wants. And that raised two things in my head. The first was, where is the dinar for things like Jaster's Diamond and Muggsy's mug jug, which everyone wants? Because the person who got the mug jug then received like 15 whispers from different people, all offering like $1 million to 1.2 million to like 400,000 gold to try and buy the mug jug off of this person, which was also like, oh my God, clearly trinkets are in ridiculous demand, which brought me to the second point in my head, which is I recognize that the best trinkets in the game at the moment drop off the last 3 bosses of this raid. And it's very weird to be like, okay, by the time you get these trinkets, you're done your prog for whatever difficulty you're on. Like, essentially, for the majority of players, they're like, we're going to put these incredibly powerful trinkets in the game, but we're going to put them so deep into the dungeon, into the raid, that most people won't get them, and most people won't get them until they've already completed the thing that they'd be using the trinket to do, which I think is a strange thing, which is why the dinar is so important that it comes in earlier. Because I would love to have a House of Cards, or I'd love to have a, Muggsy's Mug Jug. I'd love to have a Jaster's Diamond. I'd love to have, there's so many things you'd love to have. And the drop rates are low. You're always in competition with everyone else because everyone else wants these trinkets. Because the other thing they did with this raid is they made a lot of things like the trinkets, like the best in slots, work for everyone. So you're like, oh, okay, well, if that's the situation, then everyone wants one. Healers want one, DPS want one, doesn't matter if you're melee, doesn't matter if you're intellect user, doesn't matter, whatever it is, you all want one. So it's created this very strange dynamic I found this late into a raid tier, where typically I feel like most things are kind of settling down as far as loot goes, and we're like, all right, we're in it, we're just going to do this, let's whereas like I still am running normals every week on my 670 eye level Devastation Evoker, because a House of Cards on normal is still a substantial DPS increase for me. And a Muggsy's Mug Jug on normal is still a substantial DPS upgrade for me over the trinkets that I have. And that just feels weird that like they put those sorts of powerful items and laid them so deep in the raid that there aren't a lot of them out there, and they haven't put in the system that we all expected with Dinar to help people get them really quickly, right? Like the first week that a Dinar comes out, you will see a massive amount of people buy Jaster's Diamonds. That's what'll happen. Anyone who doesn't have a Jaster's Diamond will buy a Jaster's Diamond. That's going to be the biggest upgrade for everyone across the board. And then the next time you get a Dinar, you'll see this like bits and pieces of buy a Mug Jug or buy a House of Cards, whatever it is they don't have yet to fill that in. But like, it feels weird to have pieces that are so sought after that where everyone's Dinar is going to first go around, because it's just, you're not going to see it again. Like you're not going to get one. So it's, I don't know. It's a strange thing. It was something that came up while I was doing Heroic this week, that this is a problem. And I'm glad to see that we got a blue post about the Dinar, because clearly I'm not the only one feeling this way.
Yeah, I want to get into my conspiracy about this is why LFR actually exists. But we don't have to. I agree with your points, and I think part of the reason why they do this is it's to increase that engagement with the really committed players into the lower difficulty content. It keeps you playing, you know. So yeah, I don't know. It's not great. The dinar thing coming in mid-season is weird. It's they haven't done it before, and I think maybe this wasn't the way to go. I think having it in the renowned track might have been the way to go. I know that was how they announced it, and then they said, wait, we don't like that. We're not going to do that. We'll have more details. We still don't know as we record right now. I'm going to guess we're going to find out very shortly after Tuesday patch.
I don't know, man. I have theories about this. We'll talk about it when we get to the blue post, but I don't know if we are going to see it that shortly after.
Well, I don't think we're going to get the dinar on Tuesday, but I think we'll know with the information about what to expect. I have a feeling it's going to involve some kind of thing with ethereals or something, but we'll see.
I'm just going to tie it into horrific visions because everyone seems to like those.
Yeah, I sincerely hope not. But yeah, like it's leaving people in a weird spot now because now we're mid-season and it's like, well, my gearing's like mostly done, but I have if I'm presented with a difficult decision, do I wait for my puzzling cartel chip or do I take this item or what do I do? And it's like because the game really revolves around the Great Vault. That is really like where your loot comes from. Most of the stuff I have equipped, I got out of my Great Vault already this season. Right. We're only 8 weeks in the season or whatever, 7 weeks. They designed the game to work like that, and so figuring out, okay, I'm going to get these 2 pieces of gear for sure at maximum item level. So like, I don't want to take them out of the vault, but then again, my team's still progging, so like this is a big upgrade if I get it, but it wouldn't be. Then I'm wasting a cartel chip because of reasons. I wish they would have given us the details up front or like just launch the system with the .5 patch. I think that would have just been, or the 11.1.0 patch. I mean to say, like it should have just came out with the season roll and been in there. Like it worked great in previous seasons where it was like season 4, the end of Shadowlands, the end of Dragonflight. Here, you earn these things, go get what you want. You get it early on in the season, just max out those 2 slots and go. That was good. Doing it this way, it's an experiment. It's a different way to try it out. We also haven't gotten like these mid-season, mid-expansion dinar, cartel chip, bronze, whatever you want to call it. It's always been at the end as sort of like the going away present for the expansion. So, trying some different stuff with itemization. I like when they try different stuff, but I think this has just put players in sort of a state of frustration. So, hopefully we'll get the details like very shortly after this patch goes out, and then we'll at least have a plan.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I have my theories, and like I said, we'll chat about them when we get there because they've used I guess this sort of spoils some of the theory, but they've used the same line several times now to mean a very different thing. So it's weird to me to see them talking about the dinar and saying that we will see stuff soon after the patch goes live. Because you know what else is described as happening soon after the patch goes live? That's when Horrific Visions come out. Oh, and Dashly Duos, those are also soon after the patch goes live. You know when Dashly Duos come out?
Within
June
like
3rd.
A month and a half. Yeah. Right.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, it's like 6-7 weeks, right? Yeah.
So soon after can mean a big variety of things.
Yeah, so I think at least if we have like a timeline that at least lets players make more informed choices when it comes to vault stuff and whatever. Yeah. So hopefully they just let us know soon. I have a feeling they're holding it back for story reasons because usually like when we don't have the information that we want, it's because of story. And I understand call. Like I understand why they do that, but like I don't think that's important enough to players who play like we play and like a lot of our audience plays. Like the story is cool, but we have these important decisions to make about our characters on a weekly basis. So we need as much information as we can get.
It's to me the case of, hey, if by the time we get a dinar, the bulk of teams that are going to clear Mythic have cleared Mythic, that's a big problem. Because now
like what was the point
useless.
Of it, right? Like why did we ever have it?
Yeah, now it's a useless item that's like, that is very unfortunate because like to me the reason why you put a dinar in my opinion, is because you want to give players who are currently working on gearing their character and working on clearing content that they find as challenging content, that extra little leg up and reward for putting in the time and effort for doing it. That's why you do it, right? So to me, a dinar should come into play when you clear heroic raid, or when you hit 2,500 rating in Mythic Plus, or when you those are that thing where we got the extra charge on, in this case it was an extra spark, right? Is what we ended up getting this go around. Before it was, we got an extra piece of tier that we could convert in previous ones. To me, the dinar is that reward where it's hey, pick the trinket you want, or the whatever it is you want as a reward for accomplishing this task. That to me is where that falls for what should happen, because it would help so many players be able to cross something off the list that's so critical to their class working and functioning properly. Now, I also think it's unfortunate when, in my opinion personally, I don't like when there's something like the Jaster's Diamond in the raid or the Ring Off of Queen, where it literally is, hey, everyone wants this. This is the best in slot for everyone. This is just by default where your first dinar should go. That is never should be the situation, in my opinion. There shouldn't be items in the game that are that powerful. It should be something different for each individual player, in my opinion, as far as what they want to do and how they want to do it. I love trinkets. I think trinkets are a great opportunity to do that with gear. I think it makes a lot of sense to be yeah, if you saw this thing come out and people were picking between the big red button and they're picking between House of Cards, and they're picking between, Rick's Reverb trinket, and they're picking between the Mug Jug, and they're picking between, and there's a whole bunch of trinkets. I think that's a really interesting decision to see who chooses to do what and who needs what, and how it's going to help their class in some way. It's going to feel really weird to be hey, here's your dinar. Thanks. Can I have my Jaster's Diamond, please? So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens with the whole thing, but that's what we've got going on top of show, I guess. How about anything you want to chat about before we move into the mid show?
Yeah, I mean, so this week, it's Easter weekend, obviously.
Yep.
And so we have a schedule written on Sundays. I don't really know what anytime there's a holiday overlap, I just kind of assume that people are going to have commitments.
Right.
And Sunday evening is kind of a hard night to get people in for, even in general, just in the springtime and summertime. So I said, all right, we're going to do skip for now. And maybe for the foreseeable, we're going to skip Tuesday, clean up Galley, get into Mythic and see how far we can get. And Sunday we'll just chill, have a smaller group, clean up the Heroic ID. This was a great plan until we died on Heroic Gallywix for an hour on Tuesday. I don't know why we died on Heroic Gallywix for an hour on Tuesday. I can't figure it out. The execution wasn't terrible, but, it is a fight where a few early deaths really put you behind the 8-ball. The fight was nerfed this week, which we'll get into kind of the particulars of the nerfs a bit later, but it didn't feel nerfed, and our healers were really sweating. We ended up 5 healing for a group that was maybe 20. I forget if it was 22 or 25. So it's kind of on the borderline, where you should be able to 4 heal it with our experience and our gear. But we had to end up, tagging in another healer, and then we had to start heroing at the top because we were getting really weird overlaps into the intermission between P2 and P3. It was super frustrating. Discord was really quiet, and that's usually a bad sign. People don't say oh, hey, this is happening, or I have a question about this, or, I'm going to do this time or whatever. It's well, we'll see what happens. But we're having some miscommunication and real tentative play around the bombs, which you can't afford to have. The bombs somebody decisive has to grab a bomb and deposit it in the correct direction. It's just got to go. So it was just a real frustrating night. We did end up killing it with enough time left to at least get Mythic Vexy down on Tuesday. So that was good.
Nice.
We came back Wednesday and we did Mythic Cauldron. We had a bunch of people who weren't in for the initial Cauldron kill. So it wasn't reprogging, but it wasn't a one shot. It took a couple pulls, but it felt pretty good. And the kill was mega clean, much better than our initial kill. So that felt really nice. And some people got the achievement for that. So that was cool. The bad thing is we only ended up with maybe about an hour and a half to really get some pulls in on Rick. So we didn't kill Rick this week, and we will not kill Rick this week because I don't think I'll have anywhere near a Mythic team to field tomorrow.
Yeah. But
we got him to about 33%. That was a pretty good pull, and it's really you just got to survive that part, and then you kind of just do the whole dance one more time. So I think we'll get there. It's definitely a killable boss in the next week or so, but just schedules have been really rough with this patch because my own schedule has been weird. I missed 2 Sunday raids already this season, which is unusual for me, but I've had stuff going on, And so, and then this week kind of gets a little truncated. So kind of frustrating, but I don't think anybody was really in super bad spirits by the end of it. It was what it was, Keystones, I cracked 2,900. So I'm at like 2,918. I got Priory 12 in time for my resilience, so I just need Motherload. I just haven't seen a Motherload 12. Really? It's like I've been failing them. It just hasn't come around. So
yeah, it's one of the easiest ones to get for sure. So
yeah. Like I mean, granted, I play with about I don't know 10 people or so in my Mythic Plus orbit. I'm not pugging. I'm not like out trying to fill a Motherload 12 or whatever pug. So we just haven't gotten it yet. I'm sure it'll come around soon, and I'll get that resilience done, which is cool. And then it's like, I'll just need a couple 13s probably to get over the hump in the 3K. And then that's really my goal with Mythic Plus for the season. We did 1 or 2 13s this week, nothing in time yet. But, a couple of the people that I run with have some 13s, 14s under the belts to 3K plus, whatever. So it's just a matter of time. I just haven't been doing the volume of dungeons. I've still been doing, I don't know, probably 10, 12 dungeons a week. So even more than I need to for Vault. But just because I think the pool's really fun. I think the gameplay is really fun. And if there's a chance to squeeze out some rating or, get that resilience done, then I'm into it. And then, I'm staying consistent with Monk and Druid Delves. They're done for the week for Vault, so they're good to go. Still having some frustrations with heroic trinkets from Vault rewards and from bounty rewards, but that's the cost of doing business in Delves, unfortunately. I might start taking the Monk to heroic farm. It's kind of early for that, but I feel like it's okay. My Monk is well into the 650 item levels, and I need to set up a season 2 tank build for him. I'm probably not going to take him tomorrow night, but I think it's going to be time pretty soon to be like, hey, I'm going to grab the Monk and just try to round out his gear. So that's pretty fun. I mean, I'm still having fun in Delves, but I am now we're far enough in where it's like, okay, the warrior needs nothing from this whole process. I actually just do them for crests on her because I can get them early in the week, kind of before raid and dungeon kick in for me. I can do them during the day. I can get a couple extra myth track upgrades done before we start doing stuff, and then it kind of smooths out my crest acquisition for the week. And then the Monk and Druid, I've been doing 311s, get the gildeds, do the rest 8s to fill up the vault, and I'm sitting on my gildeds on those tunes mostly outside of weapons because I want the discount. So once the warrior's done with gildeds, then it'll be like, okay, now I'm getting a lot more bang for my buck out of using gildeds on hero track items or whatever. It's like really silly min-maxy stuff, but I'm not doing challenging content on those tunes, so it's just that's just gonna be quality of life when that kicks in later in the season.
Yeah, no, definitely having that gilded achievement unlock is massive for your ults. So I get that feeling. Same thing with the rune
waiting
one.
On that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I waited on the rune one a little bit, but I got that so fast there was no tension there. The gilded one, I need a couple other pieces, but I mean, I'm having a great time, man. It's I know it's still early days. It's only 7-8 weeks in or whatever, but I feel like the content just really came together, and they continue to make good changes to it. And we'll talk about some more that are coming in this. They're live now, actually. There's still kind of tweaking the dials and stuff, and just polishing up those issues, those pain points, which I think is awesome. I felt like in season 1 they certainly did that, but they had some outliers they needed to bring in line, and they didn't keep their finger on the button with that stuff. And I hope they continue to. Some of the changes we got coming in this week in dungeons are awesome and much appreciated.
Yeah, I definitely am looking forward to doing some more keys with the recent changes that came in. I did some previously, but before we start chatting about that, let's actually get going on to what's going on this week in World of Warcraft, because then we can talk about it as we go through it. All right, this week will be the Legion Time Walking event, meaning the sign of the Legion buff is up, increasing reputation gains from combat and quest by 50%. And characters level 10 and above can access Time Walking versions of Blackrock Hold, Court of Stars, Darkheart Thicket, Eye of Ashara, Maltharian's Lair, and Vault of the Wardens. As well as, remember, there is a lot of gear you can get off the vendors. That is 593 high level gear. The dungeons are dropping 606. And of course, you get a cache of normal Liberation of Undermined gear, which for those like myself will be farming because, hey, there's still a few trinkets and a ring that I could definitely want out of that normal box that would still be useful for me. So that's something you should pay attention to this week. Also, with the 22nd kicking in, there's going to be that extra buff to to experience gain, which means this will be a very fast way to level characters. Legion dungeons were great dungeons. Very fun. A lot of these are really good dungeons to run through. Court of Stars might be a bit longer than some of the other ones, but it is something that queuing into these on a low level character to level a character will go very fast this week with that added 20% on top of the increases you may already have from your warband and whatnot when you're leveling characters.
Yeah, I mean, I love Legion's my favorite expansion ever, and the dungeons were a big part of it. Nelth Lair is like just an all-timer for me. So this is a good pool to run through. It's going to be a leveling bonanza for sure with the buff coming in from patch. Yeah. So keep that in mind. Like if you have a tune that's like, well, I played him in Dragonflight, but didn't want to play him, yet. This is a great opportunity to do that. Like there's not a lot of other stuff coming in with patch, so good chance with the time walking week kicking it off. Just get these dungeons done in like 10 minutes each or less, maybe even if your group knows what they're doing. Get your XP stacking up, and like you said, the normal Undermine gear could be all kinds of good stuff. So a lot of reasons to do it still for sure. It's really nice lining it up with the XP holiday coming in.
Yeah, I already set aside the characters I want to level back when we had the anniversary event going on. So I created a warband when warbands came out and went, okay, these are the next 4 characters that I'm leveling, and just put them into their own little warband as my like leveling group. So when this kicks in, if this is something I want to do, or I'm kind of bored during the week or whatever it is, I can easily crush out some Legion time walking to level those characters up very quickly. It's the 20% plus your warband bonus plus 100% increased experience gain inside of the new expansion. So it is a lot of experience gain that you're going to be experiencing when you're trying to level people up. So should go quite quickly. Okay. The Undermine, obviously you want to go down there and pick up your weeklies to be able to complete those. But this week is going to be disc fragments from the Titan disc fragments stuff you're doing, which delves consistently remain as the best way to earn these quickly. Remember, you can get 50 of them from killing the world boss, so that's another great way to get 50 of them right off the bat. And outside of that, you're not going to get any from Mythic Plus, but just doing your opening treasures and that kind of stuff will get you some more of them. I was a little optimistic about treasures this week, Jason. 3 of my characters who are still doing professions. Oh, by the way, I'll mention this now. Unless you're a jewel crafter, you could have completed all your professions by now if you're up to date on them. So we've hit that break point where like the majority of professions are now at the point where the knowledge has existed, if you were staying up to date with it, to have completed your profession at this point of the expansion. However, if you're a jewel crafter, that's still not the case because it requires the most points more than anything else. I know that I am 300 knowledge behind on blacksmithing, on the character that's a blacksmith, because it was the last profession I chose to start into. But yeah, doing the math out, it looks like blacksmithing could have been wrapped up as well if you're staying up to date on it. So
I don't know. I'm not quite done with it yet. I'm pretty close though. But I got all armor smithing done, which took a lot. So, but yeah, we're getting to that point where it's like, okay, you can just kind of you don't have to worry about knowledge anymore.
Yeah.
But hopefully we get a knowledge sync for something like they did in Dragonflight. That's what we need next. That's 7 maybe.
Yeah. So I was going around gathering treasures. Since I diverted from this story, I'll tell this story next. It's going around gathering treasures, which the first 3 characters I did on, like, we're getting them in like 1 or 2 treasures. I was getting the knowledge points. I was like, oh, did they finally fix this? Is this finally changed? Is this finally better? No, I then got on my 4th character, and I literally went around for an hour and a half gathering treasures while I was watching a movie, and realized after the hour and a half, I still hadn't gotten the 2 treasures that I was looking to get. I'd gotten 1 of them, not the second one. And I was like,
wow,
an hour and a half of flying around, landing, clicking on the puddles of wax, the thing spawning, looting it, flying around again to the next one, like just over and like just do it and going. I just gave up. I was like, I'm literally not doing it this week. I'm done with treasures. Like it's a bad system, poorly designed. If I'm not getting my reward in 5 or 6 of these things, it is not worth it at all for the knowledge points that come out of it. It's just, I'll just fall behind, and that's fine. So on the characters that are not capped yet, I am giving up on Blizzard's system of getting knowledge points from treasures. It's just not worth it anymore. So I would rather fall behind and then earn them a different way than try and engage in that system, because it's just too punishing for players. So if you're listening, maybe you should fix that thing that I've been complaining about for the last 4 months, That'd be nice.
Some kind of streak protection on it, Like, I haven't run into anything like that. I usually get my 2 knowledge items pretty quickly on the warrior for blacksmithing. But yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. The good thing about it is, like, there's a hard stop on the system, so like you don't really have to,
exactly. Right.
You know that you'll get all the points with plenty of time to spare as long as you get most of your points every week. But yeah, I mean, to bring it back around to the disc fragments, like
it is, yes.
Man, you get like one fragment per treasure, so it's it's a good way to supplement, I guess. If you end up having really bad luck on your knowledge items, it can get a nice chunk of these done. Could save you a delve or something, maybe even, right? Like, but yeah, that's this week. This is actually a really good one. Well, see, the problem is we're still in the lane where, like, you probably want your spark as soon as you can get it. But later in the season, this is a good one to just kind of sit on, because then you can overlap it with the delves weekly, and then it's like, okay, well, there's a 2 for 1, but this week is a full spark with this fragment, so like you may want this right away.
I think this week is not. I think this is the half spark. The week that we're currently in was the full spark. Next week's half spark with catalyst is what's happening, and then week after that'll be full spark is what it should be, because they alternate, right? So I think we're good to wait a week this week. But the thing that sort of lands for me with it is, I think we are 1 spark away from having enough sparks that people were able to craft either an offhand or a 2-handed weapon with, like, belt, boots, cloak. Like, I think we're getting to that 4 spark range, where the 5th spark is what we're about to get. And the 5th spark will be the one that I think people start to go, what am I going to use this for? And aren't really sure where it goes. And maybe you're looking at crafting a piece for that really bad tier slot. The tier set just doesn't really give you the secondary stats you want. And maybe we're hitting that point soon. Because I know I hit the point this week on my evoker where I crafted a belt for my evoker and was like, okay, what other pieces am I going to craft or replace? And I went through it all, and I was like, I've crafted everything I want to craft, or I have a good piece with good secondary stats in the slots that I wouldn't, I would think about crafting for. So I can leave all those alone. Maybe I'm crafting my gloves or something as my next piece to sort of figure out what sort of fits as that slot. So yeah, I think we're getting close to the sparks being, hey, you can earn enough of them that you're now, sort of swimming in them, which is what the end of last season was, where I literally have like 10 spark fragments sitting in my bank on a bunch of characters, being like, I'm never going to use these. Yeah,
well, also, and it didn't help that the season 1 economy was so out of whack. In season 2, it's like, well, for 60 crests, like, you can pretty much justify crafting a thing just to fill an item level, which is awesome. I've been doing that, actually, like, because it's when it was 90, it was like, dude, this is my whole week of crests. So it's so much better this time around.
Yeah. All right, PvP Brawl this week is Gravity Lapse. That is Eye of the Storm with modified rules, where every minute the gravity turns off and you just start floating around in space fighting people. And then it turns back on again, and you plummet back down towards the meteor, or if you're not over the meteor, you just fall into space. So yeah, be sure you got land under your feet when you're floating about up there, getting into fights. And if you're timing your knockbacks really well, who knows how far you might be able to knock someone off that thing. So keep that in mind when Gravity Lapse kicks in on Tuesday. Weekly bosses this week are the Gobfather and the Aggregation of Horrors. So obviously you want to kill the Gobfather once per week just to get that piece of 642 Warbound loot, which I know many people in my guild now have geared alts because they just keep the Warbound gear stuff has been really neat to see, because getting one difficulty step down Warbound off of raids, where if you're in a normal, you get an LFR piece. If you're in heroic, you get a normal piece. And if you're in mythic, you get a heroic piece of Warbound loot to go to an alt, is neat enough on its own. But getting the 642 Warbound piece from the Godfather guaranteed every week has meant that we got a lot of guildies that are just like wearing a bunch of Warbound stuff rolling around on their characters, which I think is a lot of fun. So I dig this system. It's a great system. And yeah.
I love it, man. It's so good. Yeah. I think some people sort of had a negative reaction to it at first, because it's like, oh, we can only get loot one time a week. But it's like, no, you get a piece of loot for your account every week.
Yeah.
Like every week. I mean, how many times did I queue up on, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 tunes? I mean, remember in the Shadowlands, like when we first got the Catalyst and everything, I was like, I'm going to get every tier set. I'm going to get all the Mog, whatever. I was doing the world boss over and over and over again. And it's not like the world boss is fun. Like it's cool to do as part of your kind of weekly routine once, right? Like there's not a lot of gameplay there. So having to do it multiple times just stinks. This is so good, man. Like I got a little plate chest, I think, this week. So I'm starting to get my paladin going a bit. I mean, I got the other stuff, I guess, for characters I don't have leveled up yet, but then that's some incentive to go, hey, maybe I'll check that one out. We got a leveling holiday coming up. Might be worth it. Then I can just slap on some 642 gear right away.
Yep.
I dig it. I think it's a great model for World Boss.
From what I'm hearing so far, too, about Prop Pally, is it's the most fun spec to play, even though it's not the best tank spec to play at the moment. So I'm hearing a lot of people who have multiple tanks who are playing Prot who are like, this is a really fun to play. And you're like, that's great. And it's like, unfortunately, it just doesn't do the damage or, have the buttons as some of the other tank specs. You're like, oh, okay, that's too bad. So yeah, it's I'm hoping it gets the love it needs, I guess. All right, Mythic Plus. Before we talk about this week's affixes that we're heading into, I want to talk about Voidbound, which is the current affix that's up. This is getting a little rough around the edges as far as Voidbound goes. It has enough of a health barrier that when you're doing 10s and 11s, you really do need burst classes to look at it and pay attention to it and deal with it. Because one or two people I'm finding are now starting to get to the point where it's a little bit of a struggle to get this Voidbound emissary ad dead. And it has one of the most, it probably has currently the most punishing thing for missing it, because you don't get any benefit. If you miss this Voidbound, it's not like you get you get like 40% of the buff or whatever, right?
You don't do with some of the other ones, yeah.
You get no buff. And so it's that case of, if you didn't kill it by 20% or 40%, you've now sunken a bunch of damage into this thing that was totally useless because it didn't contribute to a buff at all. And B, now the thing you're fighting is taking dramatically less damage and doing dramatically more damage. And that I want to say Voidbound, got to make this thing easier to kill is what I'm just putting out there. I think people should be able to look at this thing and 1 or 2 DPS at most, if not just 1 DPS, could DPS this thing down if they turned in focus to it. I don't think it should be a major mechanic where you're looking at, if I switch and that person doesn't, we're not going to kill it in time. So what's the point? We there's a point, because if we don't DPS it, then it's going to take loose damage on the thing that we're killing. But maybe we can kill the thing we're killing in time. Like it's that is irritating to me. On top of the, hey, we just finished killing a boss and guess what spawned at the end of the boss? The Voidbound ad, which is now just following us along as the tank makes a beeline to the next trash pack. And guess what? It's now halfway through channeling by the time people start DPSing it. There's no chance for us to kill this because we had a choice between stopping and remaining hanging around to DPS this thing to kill it as the only target we're focusing on, which doesn't feel good, or dragging it to the next trash pack and then just hoping it happens to die through whatever, sheer chance of luck that exists before it buffs all of the trash and makes the trash take very little damage. So I think the punishing factors of this is the fact that any damage you put into it does not contribute towards some sort of buff that you get. You have to actually kill it to gain a buff is the first part. And the second part is that there are situations that exist where Voidbound spawning is just a punishing thing to have to try and deal with while dealing with a boss or certain packs or whatever that is. Like you want to talk about Cinder Brew with totem spawning and trying to deal with the Void Emissary during totem spawning, or it's spawning during IPA as a boss and try to deal with the ads that happen during that boss while also trying to DPS down the Void Emissary and have that all happen at the same time. There's a lot of situations where I feel like its health is what feels like it's punishing. The fact that, one DPS can't focus on this thing for 5 or 10 seconds and kill it is a problem. I think that it either needs to have an extended cast time so it's around a lot longer before it actually kicks in, as far as, you fail it, or it needs to have less health so it just dies easier, because it's a weird thing to run into. And I definitely did not miss having this affix when I started running 12s and 13s this week. It was really nice to have it gone, because it as much as it's my favorite buff you get, the versatility and cooldown reduction is really nice. I definitely noticed playing a Boomkin, for example, that trying to switch to this thing and kill it is a total pain. If no one's helping you, you're just never going to do it. And that's a big flaw, I think, in the design of this affix.
Yeah, I do feel like it's a bigger problem in season 2 than it was in season 1, for whatever reason. Like, maybe early in season 1 it was a bigger problem. We're still pretty early in season 2, but also gearing is so much easier. So a lot of people are already in very high gear.
Yeah.
And like by the time we were at about this gear threshold in season 1, it was like, oh, the thing's coming out, like just cleave it down.
Yep.
Somebody touched a death that, okay, like, or somebody executed a couple times. Okay. It's a little bit sturdier this time around. So and I wonder if they feel like they can put it that way because like people are, a lot of people are just going to work their way up to 12s and just be in kind of a realm where they never deal with it anyway. I don't know. They do have kind of that, since you have an easier on-ramp in the 12s this season, you sort of have that safety valve of like, well, it's okay if Voidbound is a big pain because, you don't have to deal with it above 11.
Yeah.
I did have I think I had the rotation inside out, or they changed something, or I got confused with the week that we didn't record or whatever, because I thought it was supposed to be Devour this
current
week that we're in right now, but it's coming up next week.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if that was my mistake or if something changed, or maybe a little bit of both. So we'll see. But yeah, I did some keys with Voidbound this week, and like I don't think my group had any like legitimate problems with clearing it, but it was just obnoxious. One thing I find a lot, and I guess this is a good thing in a way, but I find that the Xal'atath's bargain, like tends to consistently spawn like as we're about to exit combat, regardless of what it is. And then it's like, okay, well, 15 seconds of this 30-second buff is going to be us like running to the next pack, or like now setting up to do the boss or whatever. Like it's kind of better, I guess, if it spawns at the end of combat because it's less ultimately disruptive and punishing, but also the upside is so much lower.
Is gone.
Like it's a very weird. It's just a weird like compromise, I guess. The way it comes in, it's like I'm not sure. I talked about it last week. For a long time, I was kind of on team like affixes are good because they provide variety, but I'm really seeing the other side of the coin this season. Like, it's just so nice to not have to worry about them, even if the dungeon's harder. Like, yeah, and there's still enough variety with an 8 dungeon pool and all kinds of different mobs and stuff. But not everybody's in the realm of doing 12 pluses, and at lower ranks it's okay, I feel like, because you're not going to have that tension around killing the Voidbound as much. It'll die much faster. But if you're like at 11s trying to get into 12s, man, you really got to be able to manage these things. So yeah, it's kind of tough.
Yeah, I guess for me, affixes should be something that are much more kiss than they are curse, like much more. Like they should be something that, yes, if they're ignored and you just don't deal with them at all, it's a noticeable impact on your run in some way of like, oh, well, you didn't do any of the affixes all the way through. No wonder you had so much trouble timing this key. But I don't think it should be something where it's like, hey, you literally have to stop what you're doing and pay all of your attention. Like everyone has to pay all their attention to this thing for like at least 5 to 10 seconds, so that you can make sure that you don't suffer this horrible consequence. And you're like, okay, that's what Voidbound feels like to me right now. Is the DPS need to all make sure that the target they're focusing on is the Voidbound when it comes in, because you need to kill it, and it's going to take you 5 or 6 seconds to kill at least. and then you can go back to doing whatever else it is you were doing. And I think it's too high of a standard, in my opinion. I think it needs to be die much quicker. It's a weird thing to me to be having trouble with in season 2. But when you start dealing with the group of people I'm bringing in are doing, an average of 3.7 million DPS overall in the key. And we're talking about, high 665 and above geared characters doing 10s. And there's a void bound spawning. And if none of us really pay attention to it and just kind of cleave away, it 100% lives. And if one of us switches to it, it typically still kind of lives, depending on which DPS it is, unless they have a lot of burst, right? If you have a monk who's touch of deathing, great. If they are saving their touch of death for just the emissary spawn every time, that's great. Except monks also like using that ability on bosses to help bosses die faster. And then you suddenly don't have that ability up for the emissary spawn, and that's a problem. So I don't know, it's a weird thing that we're dealing with this week. But we're moving out of that. Next week, this coming Tuesday, we will have our Devour week that we talked about last week, which is where there's a healing quota that has to be met in order to remove a debuff from players. You can also dispel it. That means any class that can dispel, any class that has a dispel of any kind this week can help with this. This means you don't have to spend 5 seconds paying attention to it. You don't have to ask your healer to spend 5 seconds paying attention to it. You could just dispel yourself if you have a dispel. If you're a druid or a priest or a paladin or a mage or a shaman or a monk or an evoker, or all these classes have dispels. Just when the save fix comes out, right click yourself and dispel yourself, whatever that is, whatever you have it bound to, and you will be contributing dramatically to making this an easier week for your healers. So it's going to be Devour with Fortified at level 7s, and then Tyrannical kicking in obviously at 10s. We have the Fort Tyrannical combo. So this is going to be a trash week where trash is healthier and does more damage. And you're going to have to be sure that you're on top of those dispels. Otherwise, healers are going to have to really plan. If you're a healer, plan a build out that is recommended for Devour. I know when I'm druid healing, I druid heal differently during Devour weeks when I'm doing pugs than when I'm not in Devour weeks, because I need to have certain abilities that I use on cooldown whenever Devour comes up in order to make sure it gets cleared, because I can't trust people to dispel themselves, which is why I'm so vocal about dispelling yourself. All right. Yeah.
Hey, you want to time your key? You want to up your key rank? You want to get your stuff done? Then you got to play around the affixes if you're at 4 through 11. So respect it. I feel like it's not too bad to play around this season. I feel like when it first came in, it was a little gnarly, and then we all kind of came to terms with it kind of early on in season 1. I think it's rolled into season 2. Okay, just respect it. It's there. Communicate with your team. Communicate with your healer. If you have an option to remove it from yourself, do so. If you have an option to heal yourself to help with the burden, if in the event that you don't have a dispel available, do so. Just it's an element of you have to play around. It's not very noisy. It doesn't put stuff into the field of play. Doesn't make you swap a DPS target or what have you. But you can't ignore it. It'll create huge problems for you if you ignore it. But play around it, and you'll be in good shape. The first week this came out, I was like, what are you supposed to do with this? And then we all sort of figured out, oh, okay. All right. Oh, this ability works on it too. Oh, this one does too. Oh, okay. Oh, and then I can also just apply self-healing, and then so yeah, it's okay. I think it's a pretty okay week if you're looking to push your way up the ranks. The low level Fortified is nice, especially with a lot of the changes they made to trash in recent weeks. So yeah, it should be a good week out there if you're climbing.
Yeah. All right. Noble Garden also kicking off on Monday this week. That is April 21st. It's going to run until the 28th. Either way, you're going to want to be gathering your chocolates and buying up all of the new transmogs and toys that came in. I know they really amped it up during Dragonflight, so there's a lot of stuff to pick up if you have not been keeping up with this. So be sure you're keeping up with Noble Garden.
Yeah, and if there's new stuff, we don't know what it is, and we're not really going to have time to cover it because it's a 1-week holiday. Yeah. So just unfortunate the way it kind of fell this year and everything. Noble Garden is my least favorite of the yearly holidays that are sort of an Azeroth version of a real world holiday. Always has been. The collecting the chocolates mechanic just makes me want to log off of my client and go do something else. But they've done some nice reworks with some other holidays, and they added some stuff with the ducks and everything last year that was okay. So there might be some stuff from last year that people didn't grab. So that's cool. But if there's anything new, we don't know about it right now from via official channels. And we will not be able to report it to you until the event is basically over or has already ended. So keep an eye out. I'm sure there'll be an official post coming out Monday. And, you can go to the usual suspects for some, online guides and whatever. But keep an eye out. If there's new stuff, I'll do I'll grab it if I can. But, man, running around clicking chocolates, geez, it's not my favorite. It's still a big part of the holiday too. Just not my favorite activity for an in-game holiday.
Yeah. All right. As far as hotfixes go, we did see some notable hotfixes this week, primarily upfront to dungeons. But we will mention that we saw fixes for Mistweaver Monk, the fixed an issue that could cause Jade Bond to consume Chi-Chi's enveloping mist stacks. Yeah, I'm glad that's fixed. As well as an enhancement, an issue causing Maelstrom weapon stacks to become unspendable has been resolved. So yeah, that's a big problem. If you can't spend your Maelstrom stacks, that's a big problem.
Blizz is like, oh, hey, you think Enhancement Shaman's too good? You think this is World of Shamancraft? Well, how about this? What if you can't spend your Maelstrom? How do you like that one?
Yeah, apparently. In Delves, they fixed a bug preventing Brand from damaging particularly bad guy. So, yep, that's going to help you out in those delves.
That stinks. That's a really not them fixing it. It's good they fixed it. That's an annoying bug because like the particularly bad guy. That's one of the. Is it Mycomancer Cavern or is it the other mushroom one? It's one of the scenarios you get is to kill 4 of these things, and they just are a giant pile of health. Yeah. You have Bran with you for a reason, right? So like if Bran was not damaging them at all, maybe that's why when I did it before, I was like, this thing has a lot of health, but why is it taking so long to die? Maybe just because Bran wasn't contributing much to the process either. So it was like, not only is this thing beefy and it's going to be a long combat, I'm also not doing as much total damage as I normally would be.
Yeah. In Floodgate, they addressed an issue where Leaping Spark may fail to be consumed by dam water. Yeah, obviously last boss, it's important to be able to walk those Leaping Sparks into those puddles. I will say I was inside a 10 Operation Floodgate last night, where the tank, for whatever reason, every time sparks would spawn, would just move the boss from the front of the room all the way to the back of the room. In other words, from like the machines where he starts at to the staircase. And as someone who has limited range as a devastation evoker, it's really irritating to have a room with puddles all over the floor where you're trying to guide a spark somewhere, and then the tank just takes the boss out of your range every time. So that was not having a good time on that boss.
Yeah,
it was very weird. I don't know why they were doing it, but this sung to me because I was not only trying to get my spark into water, which wouldn't always happen, which I'm glad this got fixed, but also having a target when you're using cooldowns just 10 yards out of your range because they keep dragging it around is like, stop doing that.
Right, like that's kind of a thing you don't want to do as a tank, is to move the boss too much or move whatever you're fighting too much, right? Like that, it's just annoying. I don't know. Like on this boss, I try to move as little as possible. Like I don't want to move if I can help it, and the boss moves you as well. I don't know. I haven't employed that strategy, but man, Leaping Spark can be really obnoxious to deal with as the tank. Again, because you want to have the boss in a position that your team can anticipate and react to, and you don't really know where that water is going to be, and you don't know like who's going to use which water, and then if your spark doesn't actually work in the water, then you really got to scramble. So yeah, that's a great bug fix. That's a really scary part of that fight.
Yeah. They also fixed an issue in Theater of Pain where Whirling Blade and Death Spiral now have a rim visual to communicate the impact radius of the effect, as well as Kultharok can no longer melee players. Yay! The Kultharok one is weird. I don't know when he was meleeing random players, but that would be a really unfortunate thing. That is the caster boss at the end of all the platforms that you move yourself around to. That's a weird one for the meleeing aspect of that. I do know that
good because like I'm always sort of I probably shouldn't do it, but I'm always kind of dancing out of melee range on this boss because it's got the death spiral things that go around. And it's like, well, you either gotta like take damage somewhere or spin the frontal through. So now it's like, okay, now I really don't have to worry about melee range if he's not meleeing anybody, I guess. So
I believe if no one's in melee range, he does a hard smack to a player with a spell, not melee. Is what he does now. So I do think there needs to be someone in melee range at all times, but I think you can actually not worry about him meleeing players, which is nice. The Whirling Blade, all the visual ads have been wonderful. They did another visual ad, I think last week, inside of Cinderbrew, where the charge now actually has a line that goes to the player when the enemy's charging. It's supposed to just an arrow over their head. Have a line that goes through the group so you can tell where the charge is going to come from on the guys with the barrels in their back during that. As far as Liberation of Undermine goes, we saw more mythic nerfs to Styx Bunk Junker, making the toxic fume damage being reduced, as well as the incinerate damage on normal and heroic difficulties got reduced. On Sprocket Monger Lock and Stock, who we actually killed this week, which was great, so we're on our way to One-Armed Bandit at the moment. The unstable explosion damage was reduced by 10%. On heroic and mythic difficulty, as well as the sonic baboom damage was reduced by 4% on heroic and mythic difficulty. One-Armed Bandit's coin magnet damage got reduced by 10%. Mugsy's Head of Security, the Elemental Calamity, Uncontrolled Burn, Searing Shrapnel, and Surging Arc damage was all reduced by 12%. And the One-Armed Bandit Mugsy stuff is across the board, all difficulties. Chrome King Gallywix actually saw some nerfs, which is rather surprising because people are saying it's taking more pulls to kill One-Armed Bandit and Mugsy than it is to kill Gallywix. But Gallywix total destruction damage was reduced by 10%, which seems weird because if it's total destruction, it should still destroy everything, even if you reduced it by 10%. It's now, not quite total destruction. The Mecha Engineer's Canisters Healing Absorb was reduced by 10%. Canister detonation damage reduced by 10%. Venting heat damage reduced by 10%. And Mech Mastermind's Canister Healing Absorb was reduced by 10% on Mythic difficulty, as well as Mastermind's detonation damage reduced by 10% on Mythic difficulty. So saw some changes go through there. On top of that,
really nice nerfs. And for some reason we couldn't put him back down after them. And it was like, I'm wondering, we hit some kind of weird breakpoint or some kind of weird threshold where we have too much throughput, so everything's popping off too fast with the absorbs or something. But it's the absorbs are lower, the detonation damage is lower. I don't know what the problem was, but overall I think it's a really good fight. It's exactly the kind of fight that I want at this point in the expansion and at this time for the last boss of the raid. But that was a weird quirk with us this past week, but I love the idea behind these nerfs. I don't know, who knows? Maybe early on Tuesday there was something wrong with implementing them and something was bugged out. That could be. It could just be we're having an off night. But I know some teams that are working on this boss right now, and hopefully these nerfs help out, just smooth things out, give you a little bit more room to breathe around those big things where the entire raid gets a healing absorb on them, and then you gotta heal them down, and then they pop for more damage. That's that's kind of the curve you got to get over with this boss. So I definitely like all these raid changes. I mean, the Mugsy changes are great too as well. That's a pretty challenging boss and a pretty punishing one too. So some more room to breathe and just to react to stuff, I think is great when the fight's already asking you to do so much, right? And then you're also getting this punishing amount of damage out from stuff while you're trying to manage all these other elements of it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, as far as dungeons go, we then saw later hotfixes. These came in on April 18th, where Dark Flame Cleft, the Candle King's Throw Dark Flame's health absorb has been reduced by 20%. This was buffed last week, so we saw an increase to this absorb, and it was noticeable. It was very noticeable on this boss.
Think about this one. It was bug fixed, right? It wasn't working. And then they were like, hey, this actually applies now, which was effectively a buff to the boss, right? It made the boss harder because now it was behaving properly. And then the absorb became gnarly. So they had to dial it back. Now that it works right, now they got to tune it.
Yeah, it was one of those unfortunate things because it was working. We had some wipes on those bosses, which was really unfortunate. And then they hotfixed it, and it's still pretty noticeable. What's unfortunate about it for me is I feel like Darkflame Cleft was one of the few dungeons where I went, they really hit the mark with this. Like, it feels complicated enough mechanic-wise, but if you do the mechanics right, it's a pretty straightforward dungeon. It feels good. The damage checks feel good. Everything sort of feels good. And then they made this fix, and suddenly it was like, oh, now this boss can get out of control really quickly and be a big problem. And then they did the reduce by 20%. I still think it could probably go down a bit more because I kind of liked where it was. I'm not going to lie. It feels like it's probably it's definitely the hardest boss in there now comparatively to other bosses.
Oh yeah, I think it was to begin with, just because of the dance. You kind of have to. Everybody really needs to know how to execute it together. So it was already kind of like a high burden to execute, And yeah, I haven't done it. I mean, these came in last night, so I haven't played at all really. Like I've done a little bit of just farting around in town or whatever, but I haven't done any dungeons since these came in last night. So I don't know what it felt like. I did some Dark Flames earlier in the week, and man, my healer was sweating for sure.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
20% is a nice nerf, but yeah, considering everything at play on that fight, might need to be shaved down a little more even.
Yeah. As far as Cinderbrew Meadery goes, hobgoblins, those guys with the kegs on their back, they no longer spawn brew drops on death. This was immediately noticeable. So I did a brew last night. They still spawn them when they slam into the wall, so you still get the 2 every time they charge, but they no longer spawn this pile of them at the, I guess at their death. And what I found was happening, and this is why I sort of speak to the affix problem as well, is it's like the end of a pull, and then you're just stuck in combat with, in this case, like a bunch of little droplets that people are all trying to AoE down and cleave as they move to the next thing. In the affix's case for Voidbound, it was, you have this ad who's like running around behind you that spawned right at the very end that you're trying to deal with that's going to hinder your next pull. So like they both kind of hit that same mark of like, when I finish pulling trash, it's not nice when the trash spawns more trash, and then you have to stay and hang around to deal with that additional trash. So yes, this was a good change. Very happy to see it.
Great quality of life. And also another thing about that is like the hobgoblins are things that a lot of times you want to chain pull to the next pack or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not a good idea if they're going to die and explode into a whole bunch of little ads that then you have to soak damage into. They're going to eat up AoE or whatever. And they also don't count for enemy forces.
Yeah,
right?
They don't count at all, which was brutal. Yeah.
It's just like, it was such a waste of time. So this smooths it out a little bit, at least. Like if that thing charges at low health, now you can confidently just move into the next pack and you can round everything up nice and tidy,
Yeah.
So yeah, I love this change.
The the yes men, at the very end of the dungeon, they also reduced all their health by 10%. There was a neat strat that we did last night while we were doing this, which is with the yes men, you DPS one of them down to, around 20% health or somewhere below that, and you have your priest mind control it at that health. And then you kill the next one and the next one and the next one, and literally as you release the mind control, it remains at 10% health. So you can cleave right off the bat, drop one of them low, mind control it, kill another one of the low ones, and then kill the other 2, and then release this one and kill it at 10%, which feels really good as far as the strat goes for that. But that was our 13 Cinderbrew Meadery that we did last night or the night before that we were doing that on. All right, Operation Mechagon Workshop. I've done a lot of these lately too. The Rim visual added to Plasma Orb in King Mechagon's Encounter. They also added a line visual to Mega Zap from the aerial unit in the King Mechagon's Encounter. These are both very noticeable changes, which are good to see. They reduced Cujo's health by 10%. However, they also address an issue where Cujo could be hit during flame vents at a certain angle. So, Deadly Boss Mods, Little Wigs, there's Weak Auras, all of them had something that allowed you to tell when you could be hidden behind the box, lobbing stuff around the corner, and hitting Cujo the entire time as a ranged DPS or a melee DPS, depending on how close Cujo was. And they've like, this has been in since the original dungeon came out. This has been something that you've been able to do. They are removing the ability to do this, is what I think their intent is of this change, so that players can no longer DPS during that phase, which is why they're reducing his health overall by 10%. I don't think that's a large enough health reduction to make up for losing the ability to DPS during this period of time. I don't think it's a good boss design to have a boss where the goal is every 30 seconds, you're supposed to hide for 10 seconds. That just doesn't feel good at all for anyone. So I think this is unfortunate as a change. I think it would be better if they had either left it alone or even done a bit of a redesign on his abilities when this came back as a Mythic Plus dungeon to make it so that there was something you could do where you always be casting. It just, your ABCs feels good. It doesn't feel good to go and hide behind of a crate and like maybe you can cast some regrowths if they really need it, but otherwise you're just chilling for those 10 seconds until you can step out again.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do think overall, like for me, this is just a flat nerf to the boss because I am not very good at WoW. So like my positioning on like where I can set Cujo up for my team, and then like I was not taking advantage of being able to hit it. I was not doing that, and I was probably locking a bunch of people I was playing with generally out of doing it. So probably just speeds up the entire fight considerably for the just my approach to it. I think like the change to make it so that like closing the loophole on the LOS is probably correct because it's the intended design, but I agree with you that the intention stinks. Like it isn't fun to stop pushing your buttons. Like that's what we're doing. So yeah, I don't. Maybe if there was like some kind of shield or something that would come down instead of a box with LOS, and it was like we have to stand like in this little. I mean, maybe that makes it too trivial, but like maybe the box like spawns farther away from players, so you have to like reposition faster after the leaps to then get safe in the shield, and then you can continue DPSing. Like,
I mean, I would just change the ability that the boss does as opposed to it pulsing 4 or 5 times. I would have it pulse once with a long cast time. So you have to be out of line of sight by the time this cast finishes.
Yeah, that'd be good too.
It's going to be one big pulse. So you can sit out there in DPS for the 5 seconds or 8 seconds, whatever it is the cast time lasts, and just step behind the crate before the cast finishes. This big pulse goes out that would one-shot anyone who gets hit by it if they're not LOS. That ignites the crate to make it as though it's going to explode, and then you're good to go. Right? You lose the always be casting. You still have the mechanic of you need to hide, but you're not hiding for pulse after pulse after pulse after pulse while not doing anything. So I think that to me would be the solution.
Yeah,
that would work well.
It's that like 4 or 5 second channel or whatever that's really the killer once you're in position. I don't know. It's a weird boss. I think overall Workshop, I like where it has landed this season, even though I wasn't excited to see it come back, but I think it's a good dungeon.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I would say Cujo's like the hardest boss in there, but it's just obnoxious. It's just like it doesn't like the next boss, the garden is like it's very nerve-wracking and it's very hectic, but at least it's you feel like you're always doing something during it, right? It feels very active, so it's like at least you feel like you can get it over with faster, right? Like there's a certain element to that.
You just reminded me of the worst boss interaction of the week, which is Voidbound and bosses, where the Voidbound ad spawns as you kill the last trash pack, and then as the boss is spawning in, the boss will despawn because the Voidbound ad will cause the boss to despawn. This happened to me 5 times in different keys this week.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that, but that's really bad. I guess I didn't really do many 11s, but yeah.
It happened twice on the first boss of Workshop, where as those ads spawn in, who already have like a 30-second conversation at the start of that instance, which is already brutal enough. But if 10 or 15 seconds into it, the Voidbound ad spawns and you kill it or you're fighting it, it will cause the boss to despawn. It happened twice for me on Dark Flame Clef, where the first boss in Dark Flame, the second boss in Dark Flame, where it spawns in after you've killed all the AoE ads around it, the big candle boss that lights candles and then blows out candles. That boss, if you have a Voidbound ad up that's near the boss, when the boss spawns in, it will despawn the boss. And then it happened again with Cujo, where Cujo came running in to fight us as the Voidbound ad spawned and then just vanished. And we had to wait for the reset to happen. I was like, this is brutal. So that, whatever that interaction is, that has to go away, because it's like a 30-second respawn on the boss. Like, it just chews up a ton of the timer and is another reason why I don't like Voidbound. So, not good. Prior to the Sacred Flame, the Ardent Paladin's health has been reduced by 6%, which is great. The fervent.
Oh no, I wanted to spend 6% more time killing the Ardent Paladins.
God.
Please let me kill them.
Let me ring the bell some more times for you.
Dude, those things are so obnoxious. Continue to reduce their health, please. Thank you.
Yeah. The Fervent Sharpshooter's pot shot cooldown is increased by 100%. The War Lynx's health and pounce damage reduced by 20%. And the Prioress Merpay's health has been reduced by 12.5% as well. The Ardent Paladins are funny because when you pull them with the pack of ads that they come with, right? They're always in groups. And if you pull them with that, everything else will die while the Paladins still have like 40 to 50% of their health left inside an AoE cluster because they just have so much more health than everything else around them. So I'm good with them reducing that. I think that makes sense. I'm happy to see it. The Puzzling Cartel Chips update. This is Kyvax coming in, who says, we haven't forgotten. We'll have more details to share about the implementation of Puzzling Cartel Chips soon after the patch goes live. And that's where at the top of the show I was making the point of, we heard that, we were going to be seeing the Dastardly Duos soon after the patch goes live. And we're going to be seeing Horrific Visions soon after the patch goes live. And it turns out soon after can mean 6 weeks after the patch goes live. So I'm with you, Jason. I hope that after this thing goes live on Tuesday, we get some sort of layout or post saying, hey, this is what's happening with them. I'm also with you that typically when we see something like this happen, it's because where they say like, we'll have more details to share. It's because they can't share details because of some sort of story point that this affects. I just feel like if they tied Puzzling Cartel Chips to a story point, that was a mistake. I think just straight up, I'm with you. It should have been on the renown track, or it should have been on the achievement track. That should have been something that you could earn earlier by now. I think we're very much nearing that point where a lot of teams are kind of done with their progression or are done with rating because we've passed that 2-month point. Or now at that point where it's like, okay, teams start to fall off. A cartel chip before now would have helped a lot of teams out. So I think this is an unfortunate pacing that we're having, but we'll see what happens on Tuesday and soon after the patch goes live as to what that means.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the original post that Kyvex was responding to is like, it's a little salty, but it's a good post, I think. I mean, It lays out the issues with like the lack of communication and the system coming in so late in this season. I love the idea of us getting, Dinar, what they were called in the Shadowlands, I guess it was. Yeah. We've seen some other implementations of it since, but like getting that every season, and it being a thing we can count on every season where it's like, okay, you can pick 2 pieces of gear out of the raid that you're going to get.
Yeah.
And you can get them as high item level as your crest support.
Yeah.
Go have fun. I love that being not a exclusive to season 4 type of deal, but I would appreciate having like details and timelines at least somewhat mapped out, like when we're moving into a season, instead of going, hey, we're going to do cartel chips. Oh, well, actually we changed our mind about how we're going to do them. Well, we'll talk about it later. And then it's 2 months down the line or more, and we still don't have details. Like,
yeah,
I think overall it's a win because we don't usually get these things, but then it has to be wrapped in this layer of frustration and the indecisiveness about like, well, how do I make choices in my vault? How do I gear my character? Because I'm waiting on these things that I don't know when I'm going to get them, but they are still coming. They're still planned. We just, as we record today, we don't have any further details, but I think soon after the patch goes live means we'll probably have details about how we're going to get them. Probably this week, probably by the next time we record, we'll have some details about like the timeline and the acquisition method, but it will probably be another few weeks until we start actually like acquiring the cartel chips themselves.
It could be. Yeah, we don't know. So we'll have to wait and see as to what ends up happening with it. I just feel like this is a great system, and there should be a way to earn it much sooner. Like I'm thinking week 4, week 5 is actually where I'd like to see something like this happen, because the other thing that starts happening with players is you're spending crests, and it's that you hit that point where you're like, okay, what am I going to spend crests on? There's a few things I need to upgrade. It'd be great to have the cartel thing in the mix in that position to go, well, this is the thing that I want to be, really investing in, to sort of help people along as to what they're doing. You're making decisions about crafting. I like having decisions, and this would add another decision. So that would be nice to have. Okay. The 11.1.5 update kicks off on Tuesday for part 1. Part 2 is obviously, as we mentioned, is going to be kicking in on May 20th. That's for the Horrific Visions. And then on June 3rd is when we get Dastardly Duos as Part 3. The Part 1 will have the Winds of Fortune extra 20% increased experience buff that will kick in. This buff will also provide 200% faction renown increase in Dragonflight and 100% for select factions inside War Within for people catching up on renown. So that's huge. Characters level 10 to 79 will benefit from the 20% increased experience buff. During this period of time, players below level 80 will also have a chance to gain mysterious satchels while looting creatures, which get you bonus rewards from quests, which can include an additional 10% increased experience bonus that you can actually get. There's potions that you get that then stack with the 20% increased experience buffs. You get that 30% total increase if that's something you're searching for. And the experience potions are warband bound, so you're the war bound. So you can, I don't know why they say warband bound. That's a weird one. And you can consume them during the event or save them until after the event if you want to. So that's a nice deal for folks to hang on to. We're also going to get the
really cool if you're out doing stuff and you're like 79, right? And you're getting close, but then you're getting potions that you're not going to need. And then you can, stash them, or if you get a bunch you don't have time to use, you can use them whenever. I think it's really cool that they don't expire. That's a great decision. I also wanted to point out that the rep bonus does apply to a couple of weird Dragonflight factions. So if you never did Sibelian, Rathian, Cobalt Assembly, or you never finished them and you want to do some rep hunting, man, 200% renown for Cobalt Assembly or rep, it's really more of a traditional rep. That's awesome. Like, you could finish that grind really fast, being at level 80 in some level 80 gear with 200%. Like, there might be some stuff from Cobalt Assembly, cosmetics or whatever that you don't have that you might be interested in. You might just want to see that bar filled up. That could be a thing on your radar for this window if you never did it. And Sibelian Rathian is not like grindable because you got to do, it's sort of like this more weekly cadence, but you have like 4 resets or whatever to do this. So just, they're not the major factions like with the renown wheels and all that stuff in Dragonflight. But if you never did those sort of like side reps, keep in mind, like, that's a huge buff to that. So if you want to finish those up, it's a good time to do it. Yeah, it certainly is. I don't believe I ever actually finished them, so it's something I can go back and do as well. During this period, players below level 80 will also, as I said, have that chance to get those satchels, which is big. The warbound aspect of that we've already covered, so we're going to talk about the defend the Arathi and Nightfall scenario that's kicking off. So obviously that's also going to be happening. We already discussed a lot of the stuff I'm going to be going over now, but there's just a few little things to add. This scenario is something that I think folks will want to hop into for the cosmetic rewards aspect of it, because you'll increase your rank by participating, and then you can get extra buffs that'll help you get stronger inside Hallowfall and Ashkahet. So that could help you out in different ways as well. The cooldown manager. This is something I actually got to look at now because I talked about last week not having a chance to look at it. It's pretty neat. It's really, really, really incorporated into the edit mode. So you basically go in and enable this inside of your advanced options and your settings. And then once you've clicked that box, you can go into edit mode and actually customize the different types of buttons you see, the different types of cooldowns, not specifically which cooldowns you track, but the types of them, and sort of reshape it, move it around your screen and put it where you want and scale it. And so there's a lot of neat options they've done so far with that. So I like that this is a good first step. This is one of those things where, if you're not someone who's already been using weak auras, this would be a big quality of life improvement for you. If you're someone who's already in and using weak auras, then this probably isn't a factor. You're probably pretty happy with what you have set up already or how it works. But the cooldown manager for your player who does not use them, I think, is actually going to be pretty helpful when it comes to just visually on your screen having a representation of what your cooldowns are doing outside of trying to look at your buttons or what's happening with your buttons. So great to see. Yeah, I mean, I like them incorporating stuff like this into the base UI because, not every player is going to go track down weak auras and other kinds of UI mods to set stuff up. And then they're literally at a disadvantage, right? It's harder to play without that information being accessible and in a convenient place. So this opens it up to more players to hopefully check it out and use it and benefit from it. And also, eventually, as the tools continue to improve and they continue to iterate on them, Like it ends up being something that maybe can replace certain weak auras or whatever, that maybe players who have more of a customized UI, they don't have to run so many and then keep so much stuff up to date or whatever. Like those are kind of nice options. I mean, I think I agree with your point. Like out the gate, people who are happy with their UI setup and are weak auras users or whatever probably don't have a lot of use for this feature this week. But it's something that could, now it's in there, and then it's something that can be incorporated into other elements of edit mode and stuff like that. So, it ends up being just a more streamlined way to kind of set up a UI and play the game. And you made the point too. I don't know if it's last week or in one of these shows where we've been talking about the run up to patch. Like, if we're just getting a character off the ground, I want to mess around with this class. I want to play this spec or whatever. But like, I don't want to build a whole UI out for it right now. I just want to go do a delve or whatever. It's perfect for stuff like that. So I think it's a really cool addition.
Yeah. And then Horrific Visions Revisited, as I said, May 20th, kicking in. These are going to have a particular enchant that you can put on your helm, and you're going to earn lesser and greater versions of it. And that will allow you to get old, sort of like an enchanted version of corruptions that used to exist back in the BFA days, and the silliness that goes along with that. There's also going to be transmogs and mounts and toys and weapon enchants that make your weapons look all, horrific vision-y. If those are things that grab you, that's when this is going to be kicking in and happening. So you'll have to wait till May 20th for that. And then on June 3rd, Dastardly Duos kicks off. This is 2 bosses in an arena fighting your party of 5 to see what you can take on and get ranks on the leaderboard. And you're going to have options for cosmetic rewards and toys and stuff that you might want as far as that goes. They do mention even some dungeon items based on the bosses you encounter, which makes me think that there might be like champion gear track stuff that might drop that is like a trinket or a weapon or something like that to try and help people out. I can see something like that happening from this as well. So we'll keep our minds open to what that could be reward-wise, but when you look at it, these 2 things are still ways enough out. We're going to be chatting about them more on the show before they go live. But yeah, Tuesday is the day where we'll see some overall improvement for the game. Just that's that nice .5 patch, man.
Yeah, not like really a ton of stuff. I kind of alluded to it, I guess, at the top of the show. Like, there's not a ton of stuff to dive into. I don't think it'll be super disruptive to my usual routine.
Right.
We'll see about the new rep faction and the new scenario, but it's not going to be like a real vector for power for people that are doing like end game stuff, which is pretty much what I spend my time doing. So I'll check it out. It's not, the Flames Radiance thing is not really, that's not in my lane in terms of like an aesthetic that speaks to me. So I'm not like, oh man, I can't wait to get in there and collect all that stuff. I'll do it. I'll work my way through the renown and all that, and I'll get the stuff out of it. Hopefully, I guess my hope is that the pace is nice. I want to be moving from objective to objective, doing stuff. They've done some good outdoor scenarios in the past. They've done some not so good ones. I think of the one, I can't remember what they're called, but the one that was the time-based, the time-ways thing in Dragonflight, where you would go and talk to the bronze dragon, then you'd have like, okay, go kill this stuff. Now go over here and deal with this thing, and now go kill this stuff. That was good.
Timeways,
yeah. Following the tree around in the Major Cell patch, that was not good, right?
Yeah,
like okay, this is going to be 17 minutes. The thing's going to walk around. It's going to stand there and talk. Like sometimes some stuff is going to come out, and then everybody in your shard is just going to blow it all up in 8 seconds. Then you're going to follow the tree around. So hopefully this one is more like, as long as it keeps. Hopefully it's not super long, right? I think about an 8-minute experience is really kind of the sweet spot for an outdoor scenario. And, just that pace of like, okay, here, do some little tasks, now move on to the next thing. They did a great job with Theater Troop. I'm finding that to continue to be fun and just a nice kind of breezy thing to do. I'll get my keys, whatever. I like it. I still like it, even a patch and a half into its existence or whatever you want to call it. Which was not the case with some of the other scenarios they did. So hopefully this is when it's more like that. But really, like, if you want to know, like, what do I need to know about 11.1.5 launching this week? There's not a lot of. It's not like it's a big class rework patch. There's not a lot of updates to classes or anything. There's some bug fixes, some visual updates, but you're not logging into a new experience on Tuesday, no matter what you're playing, in terms of like how you interface with your character. So really, it's like if you want to level, keep in mind you got a month. You got until May 20th for the level bonanza with the extra XP and the extra rep. So if that stuff is on your radar, get started. Incorporate that into your routine. And if you don't want to level, and if that doesn't mean anything to you, then head out to Hallowfall, check out the new scenario, check out the new rep faction and rewards. And at the moment, I haven't done it. I haven't done it on a PTR. I haven't really read up on it. So I'll check it out this week when it pops in, and we'll talk about our experiences with it next time. But really, that's it. That's everything you got kind of on your radar for this week coming up. And I know it's controversial, and some people are mad that stuff is time gated. I understand that sentiment, certainly. For me, it's more like I already have a lot of stuff that I'm doing in WoW on a weekly basis, maybe even a little bit more than I really want to do in my heart, but I feel like it's worth doing. I don't need 3, 4, 5 new layers on top of that right now. I need to cycle some of this stuff out. I need to get the goblin reps done and stuff. I need to get my characters hero geared out. These things are more on my radar, and I think it's nice to have a couple weeks where we are getting the increased Goblin Cartel rep this week. So
June, right?
No, that comes in with patch. So
it's under the June 3rd Dastardly Duos thing is why I thought, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't said anything about that. So about that being the case, that should be in with patch. Dastardly Duos is its own section of the notes, and then there's like the classes notes, and then the rep and renown and UI notes.
Well, that's kicking in. That's great.
Like that'll really help, because then if I can chunk some of that stuff down, it's like, all right, that's less time I'm spending in Undermine on a weekly basis, which then goes into the horrific visions or whatever. So I think it's cool, and I mean they've been throwing a lot of stuff at us as players over the past 3 years. This patch is really hot on the heels of a big patch with the Undermine patch, and people are still working on Raid Prog, still working on Mythic Plus goals. So this is a bit of a slow rollout with stuff. So that's really all you got to know. There's some new stuff to do, but it doesn't need to kind of distract you from your main goals that you've been working on in season 2. I don't, at least I'm not seeing it that way right now.
Yeah, the only thing that stands out for me with Horrific Visions is they specifically said that the enchants that you're getting from Horrific Visions are only going to be viable during season 2, and that their intention isn't to have them be viable in season 3. And so having that not launch until the end of May makes it feel like you're going to be putting this effort in to get these enchants in the last 6 weeks or, whatever of this season before we move into the next season, is what it almost feels like to me. It feels like you'll be in the tail end of the season by the time you actually get your high-end enchant, because you have to earn the high-end enchant. You're going to start with the low-end one when you actually are able to earn that one and get it rolling and play around with it. It feels like you're only going to have a month or something to play with this system when it's totally unlocked before it just phases away and is no longer viable. So I'm a little weirded out by that, it taking that long to get Horrific Visions up and rolling. But you talked about last week on the show that they need to be sure Horrific Visions land well. So if they weren't landing well, then it's a good thing they held them back, because they really do need to. As a system.
Yeah, it's a really weird thing, I think. We saw the power catch up, whatever soft nerf you want to call it, however you want to think about it, with Cersei Circlet coming into the .7, so that's later even than this is. But they even said up front, most players are going to use this through most of season 2, or until you're in very high season 2 gear. I'm still using it. I think that was a cool way to do it, where you sort of, okay, it's a nice little power buff at the end of the season. Maybe get that next boss down, get that next keystone rank, and then you have a piece of gear that's going to carry you into the beginning of the next season. Versus, here's this enchant. They're not tuned great. They're a little buggy. It's controversial, what slot they're going to go on. You're going to get them kind of more than halfway through the season, well beyond halfway through the season, and then they're not going to be good in season 3. I don't know about that. And then. Plus, based on the numbers that people are running right now, it looks like really, what is it? Echoing Void? I think it's Echoing Void is the only good one, really. Basically,
no.
like everybody's just going to use the same
Everyone has
one.
to stand in melee. Oh,
yeah,
God.
like it's either that or I can't. I'm speaking a bit extemporaneously here, but it's either that or Void Ritual. I forget which one it is, but it's one of the ones with Void in the literal name, and like it's outperforming everything else. So it's like, well, that's kind of not like why even have the other ones? I don't know. I bet we'll see more tuning and stuff for sure, but yeah, it's weird. It is kind of like that's the highlight of like character power for this patch, but.
I can see Void Ritual.
It's not real bright. It's not like a bright highlight.
Yeah.
It's coming in late. It's a little underwhelming. So we'll see when we actually get there, I guess.
Yeah, Void Ritual is the one that gives you increased secondary stats, and if you have 2 people standing near you who are also using it, then they also get increased secondary stats, and it like is multiplicative. So your whole raid using Void Ritual would just be, hey, everyone gets a whole bunch of. It's like another flask for everyone in the raid, kind of thing, right? Is what that'll end up looking like. So. I think that's I can see why that is currently the popular one that people are running for that. Okay, Twitch drop. It's important for people just to know this is happening, so they actually log in and use it for the month that exists from April 22nd till May 20th. You need to watch 4 hours of World of Warcraft content to get your maiden bug pet. It's just a cute little bug pet. I guess Bumblebee from Transformers colored ladybug. Then you can get yourself one of those. From doing Twitch drop.
Yeah, it's just a unique model. Like I don't remember seeing this before. I'm not a pet collector completionist. Like I think pets are cool and I grab them, like whatever. I'll buy them from rep vendors and it's neat when they come out of some reward, but I'm not really up on like every pet everywhere. I just like this creature doesn't look familiar to me. It's a cool looking bug pet though, which is kind of neat for springtime. But so like, I mean, usually what they've done a lot with Twitch drops is like, here's some old thing that we're coming that used to be super rare. It was a trading card game thing or something. It's something that hasn't been accessible for years. We're going to bring that back. That was cool, but they burned through a lot of that stuff over the years since they started doing Twitch drops. And then, recently we saw a recolor of a very recent model, right? We had the Clockwork Spaniel thing.
Yeah.
And that was the last one, was the recolor on that, which was nice. And I think that was like my favorite color variant of it. This one, I feel like I haven't seen this particular creature model before, so I feel like this might be like debuting a new creature type. But if not, then it's a palette swap on something that's under my radar, apparently. So kind of a cool reward. You got plenty of time to grab it. This whole like the first month of the patch, you can get your Twitch drop pet while you are enjoying the XP buff event. Right? They kind of sync right up together.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, wow. With that, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today, I'm giving a special shout out to Arajian, Bradley, James, Garrett, Kapawi, Cobra, Max, and Shorel. Thank you so much for all you give, as well as all of our patrons who contribute towards the Patreon. You help us out in big ways, so thank you so much, both patrons past and present. If you are someone who wants to hop in and become a patron, you can find our Patreon over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. And we have no new patrons yet this week, but thank you very much to all of our patrons who support the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, patrons. We couldn't do it without you. You keep us on track, keep the show where it needs to be, keep all the archives online, and help us pay the bills around here for getting the show out to the world. We couldn't do it without you, sincerely. So thank you all, past and present, for everything you contributed to the show. And really, it's a big reason why we're doing a weird record time today, because we got other stuff going on. We got to make sure that we got a show for everybody on the feed. So you can thank a patron for that.
Yeah, definitely you can. And just a PSA to our patrons, our payment model thing is going to be shifting at some point soon here, because we are now at that point where they're starting to shut down the access to a pay per creation situation, which is what we have right now, where people are paying per episode, and it starts to become a monthly thing. So they'll be shifting over to monthly charging at some point here in the future. So just giving everyone a PSA that'll be happening at some point soon as we move into this new year and all of their rules change. So just keep that in mind. If you folks have enjoyed this episode, another great way to support the show is heading over to your iTunes, your Apple Podcasts, your Spotify, whatever it is. Leave us those 5-star reviews. They mean a lot, and we'll read them here live on the show once we track them down. And that's going to wrap up episode 680 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com, or reach out to us on Blue Sky at thestartingzone.bsky.social, over on X at The Starting Zone, or thestartingzone.com/Discord. You can hop in there and chat with us in Discord. Lots of good conversation happening in there these days. Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
You can find me over on social media such as Twitter or Blue Sky. I do check both sites regularly. You can find me over on Twitter at Shieldwald. You can find me on Blue Sky at jlucas.bsky.social. I do check my messages at both places, but I mostly just post stuff to Blue Sky, but I exist in both places. You can also find video channels at twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. Video channels have continued to be quiet, as you may have noticed. I don't really love it. I wish that they hadn't been. My health has not really been where I want it to be, and I probably sound a little nasally on the show today still. I'm just like, I'm not feeling great, and I don't want to be coughing in people's ear the whole time I'm trying to run a stream, so I've just been staying off because I've been kind of low energy. But I don't know. I want to get them back. I don't know if this week might be the week. We got drops coming up, and I definitely want to make sure that people have whatever opportunities they want to get them. So
yeah,
I'm gonna try to fire them up if I'm feeling up to it and I'm not hacking too much. So check out the video channels. We'll be back at some point. Got to get the retro game streams going again too. Just gotta get this stuff blown out of my sinuses, man.
I hear you. Okay, and with that, if you're trying to find me, you can find me over on Blue Sky at spencerhd.bluesky.social, or over on X at Spencer_Downey, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD. You can throw me a follow over there, or a subscribe on YouTube over at youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.